So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'll talk about enabling transformative change, linking policy with practice, and focusing on the role of school leaders and teachers, students, but also the role of policymakers. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. So for the last 20 years, my work in education and research, as you can see, school leadership is really key to what I did and I have been involved in. So I graduated from Qatar University as a physics teacher from College of Education, taught at the Ministry of Education, secondary school for 6 years. Then I left to the UK and got my first master. I went back to Qatar, where my country started system reform. Again, I worked in a school under the reform as head of department. We faced lots of challenges. Then moved to Rand Corporation in Qatar, working with policymakers, for policymakers, to improve the quality of education in my country. Again, the PhD and research was my focus. So I went to Cambridge University. I did my second master and my PhD looking at school leadership. I am now at WISE, and for the last 4 years. And WISE is an initiative of Qatar Foundation, and innovation is part of our DNA and what we do. And I was involved in different projects and different teaching at Georgetown, at Qatar University. And I was part of Qatar Leadership Center, where it's a program for Qatari leaders to go through one-year program. So I'm really interested in learning from other sectors as well, from healthcare, from business, and not only from schools. So the focus of my by the way, I am a mother of 5 children. So I have my youngest, he's in primary, so I have primary, senior school, and in university. So that will give you another perspective of leadership. And I also write for children, so I'm interested in storytelling and as an effective tool, as Dave mentioned earlier. So the topic of my presentation today is we need to think about leadership learning. It's not a program, it's not a training, but we need to think about it as a learning process. And this is really the key of my presentation today. So I will explain what does this look like in practice, how we implement it in Qatar, and how we are moving into a global movement. So I consider school principals and their teams as designers for their learning. Best practices are great, but we need to help school principals and their teams to design what fits for their context. So why the focus on school leadership? The research is clear, and I will not spend time on that area, but referring to Vivian Robinson on the relationship between capacity building for school leadership and improving the students' outcome. We need to focus on the micro reform. If we want to improve student achievement, we need to focus on the quality of every school and every classroom. So that's the link of why do we need to focus on school leadership. Again, I want to bring to the school leadership here 2 points related to the context. We all live now in a massive disruption, disruptive innovation in housing, finance, healthcare. And the question that I'm asking everyone here to reflect on is, are we ready in education for disruption, and what does it look like? So part of the answer, I'm sure we can have a debate, we can discuss even after this conference, but the point I want to highlight, we cannot change the system, disrupt the system without redesigning the learning for school principals and their role that they bring change into school level. So we need to think about how we adopt new identities for school leaders. Why this is important? Because educational change is so complex. And what I mean by that, many speakers talk about this earlier, because in education, and reflecting at least about the experience in Qatar, people who are developing these strategies, these new ideas, are in disconnection with the people who are working on the ground. The people who will implement these new ideas doesn't make sense to them. So that's the thing we need to consider, that how we help school principals and teachers to cope and to manage this complexity. And what does this look like in practice? Again, earlier the speakers talk about professional development and how we can develop the skills, the mindset. Again, in Qatar, and I'm sure everywhere, we have a lot of courses, knowledge, theories, content that will help school leaders to improve their practice. But my argument here, school leaders need a better how, not just another what. The how that I'm talking about is the tool, is the practice that will allow them to bring change. Theories are important, but we need the tool. And this talk is part of a recent report I published around agile leadership. And our colleague from Singapore talked about being agile. So the report is available on our website to download for free in English and in Arabic. But the framework is around, when we think about leadership development, we need to consider who to develop, what capabilities to develop, and how to design effective development. Again, school leaders, they need tools and the how, but also the mindset. What I mean by mindset, an agile mindset enables leaders to adjust, learn, and iterate throughout the implementation process. And this is the three keywords you see here. It's around the whole concept of the model that we implemented. We call it the Agile leadership model, where school leaders and their teams, they go through 3 steps of impact. They clarify, they incubate, then they amplify. And I will explain this really quickly. As you know, in school system, in the education sector, we always look for different ideas. And the idea here, number one, we need to clarify what are we trying to improve. Is it reading strategy? Is it literacy? Is it numeracy? We need to prioritize the area that we want to focus on and what type of impact we are looking for. In that process, we need to build a design team, work with the people who are ready to come with you, because you will face resistance. So work with the people who are ready to bring this change. How can I go back? So number 2 here, sorry, I put it wrong. It's the incubation. The incubation, and Tony in his keynote talked about incubating new ideas. And this is the model we use. Start small, learn fast, and fail well. We need to start on a small scale to improve reading, for example. Learn through this process and fail well. Fail well means learn from your failure, develop evidence, and create your own best practices. So that's the model we are using, then the amplify and scaling new ideas. Because innovation in school is not a question of importing the right idea, but rather harnessing the creative talent of educators and students. Innovation is not an outcome. Innovation is a process that helps educators, including students, to go through a learning process to have a better impact. So finally, our 2 points here. What is the role of policymakers to make this possible? Number one, creating an open culture for trying new ideas and learning from unsuccessful effort. Number two, investing in a professional development that is embedded in a school setting on a collaborative approach. We're encouraging teachers to come as a design team to bring the change to their setting. Number three, avoiding involving schools in short, one-off courses that are not meaningful to their context, and focus on the human side of this change. I have to end my presentation, but based on this effort in Qatar, as I said, I'm really interested in supporting the school leadership. So we launched in 2017 a global network, Agile Leaders of Learning Innovation Network. After maybe this session, we can talk more, but it was a journey. We had the first meeting in Accra in May 2018, September in New York. End of this month, we will be in Paris, and hopefully to move to Doha in November 2019. And the idea is to advance the school leadership agenda because it is important to focus on that. And thank you.
Thank you very much.